Addiction comes in many forms in the world of Euphoria. For Nate, it's him being addicted to taking control. For Rue, it's being addicted to chaos. For someone like Maddie and Alamo, it's all about money and power. But here's the thing. Finding that euphoria and catching that high can take you to the very top, but once that high comes down, you go down with it. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving into Euphoria Season 3, Episode 5. Man, we've got so much to discuss, from the ridiculous opening scene to Nate losing another limb and Maddie being introduced to the devil himself and Rue digging herself in a literal hole. Let's go ahead and break down all the deep meanings from all the scenes, break down the important themes, and so much more. Full spoilers ahead. The episode opens up with a sequence that feels like it was ripped from a fever dream of a nightmare or a very strange fan fiction subreddit as Cassie is living out her dreams. When she was watching Nate getting his ass beat and having his toe cut off and him being broke, this granted Cassie the opportunity to pursue her dreams. We cut, pun intended, to Cassie showing off her feet, dolled up, polished, and she's sucking her own toes for the camera. It's provocative, it's weird, and it works. After mega influencer Brandon tagged her, she gained over 17,000 new subscribers in less than 24 hours. With the barrier now broken, the money started flowing in, but so did the request for Cassie to do anything and everything for attention online. Maddie knows to strike the iron while it's hot, as she has Cassie working to the bone. We're talking some crazy ASMR, some provocative photo shoots, her mailing out her lingerie, and request-based content like farting in a jar.
For $700?
You fart in the jar. He's not going to know the difference.
Okay.
All of this ultimately led to 50,000 new subscribers in no time. Now Maddie knows the game. In the current landscape of internet, hate is just as good as love. If people are angry, they're watching. If they're watching, they're paying. Now, Maddie gets Cassie more exposure by having her on various podcasts, as we see Cassie doubling down on the controversial treadwife rhetoric, which is arguing that men need to be the sole providers and protectors, explicitly telling Democrats that she's not talking to them.
Hunters and gatherers and protectors. But now they're being forced to walk around on their tippy toes. I mean, it's not natural. Men should be free. They should be able to speak their mind, voice their desires.
Oh, you think they're being too restricted by society?
Like, if a man today were to say that he wants a girlfriend that can cook or clean, he might as well be screaming the N-word.
Now look, let's get real for a second. At this point, it's hard not to look at this and not think that Sam Levinson didn't pull direct inspiration from the public discourse surrounding Sydney Sweeney herself.
Wait, is this a fucking play about us?
To me, this little segment is a meta-commentary on today's stars or influencers that rage bait their way to the top, and in exchange, the audience politicizes them, they objectify them, and then watch them profit from the firestorms. But even with 50,000 subscribers and a million eyes on her, Cassie is still hooked on Nate. Maddie calls Cassie out for wiring Nate $35,000 because he was going to be evicted from their house. Cassie tells Maddie that he's been very supportive of her new career and thinks she's done an amazing job, but as Maddie puts it, Nate's not a breadwinner, he's a bread loser who's definitely taken advantage of his wife, as Maddie points out that if Cassie doesn't be careful, Nate could be entitled to 50% of what she makes. Now it's funny because, as we'll discuss later, Nate isn't the only one taking advantage of Cassie. But then this happened. Now, as Cassie got bigger and bigger, so did the things her fans requested of her. She got so big that she outgrew herself literally, as the show decided to visualize Cassie's growth by literally turning her into a giant walking through the streets of Los Angeles. It's this Godzilla-like Cassie as she's stomping through the streets, towering over the Hollywood sign. Now look, I get the metaphor. It's all about her ego, her influence, and how she's destroying or taking over. But the visual execution to me was one of the most head-scratching, cringy, and straight-up ridiculous scenes of the entire history of this show. And just when I thought that it couldn't get any weirder or worse, we see Cassie finding one of her fans pleasuring himself to one of her videos in his apartment building as she taps the glass and leans her breast against the window while the guy licks the glass and he's in a state of euphoria. I truly couldn't believe what I was watching, and for a minute there, I almost felt myself almost turning off this episode because, again, I couldn't believe what the hell was actually going on my television screen. Look, there's been a lot of shocking things on the show, but this was just straight up stupid to me. In a show that prides itself on being raw and edgy, this scene was just an overreach. This to me was a perfect example of why sometimes a writer like Sam Levinson needs an editor that can just tell him no. There's a line between artistic expression and just throwing ridiculous things on the screen for shock value just to see if it sticks. And again, to me, this was way past the line of stupidity. It was pretty hard to watch. But I have to remind myself, that's Euphoria. It's a show that constantly tries to push the envelope, even when the envelope has clearly been shredded into pieces. We got a lot more to break down, but I need to know from you all in the comments right now, what did you all think about that opening sequence? Am I wrong in thinking that it was like extremely stupid with the metaphor of Cassie being a giant? Or do you all think it was like the best piece of art you've ever seen? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Now, as we cut to Alamo's, where we find him being pissed off at Eddie about how things were handled with the robbery situation. He's looking at Eddie, who, mind you, literally took a bullet during the robbery, and instead of seeing a loyal soldier, he sees a traitor because Eddie opened up the safe. In Alamo's twisted, ego-driven mind, dying for the money was the only acceptable outcome. Now, Alamo and his crew are fully aware that Lori and her crew were behind the robbery, and it's time for them to get their get back. Bishop believes that they have an element of surprise on their side as he has Rue draw up a map of Lori's farm. Now we can clearly see Alamo's on edge as he's taking out his anger on his crew as he attacks Kid after mistakenly giving Alamo some pants that definitely didn't fit him, as Alamo takes this as him saying to him that he thinks he's a little boy.
Who is that guy? Who are you? Huh? Some little, small, pathetic motherfucker. Because that guy ain't me. You ain't me.
He starts slapping Kid around and holds an ice pick to him and makes him piss his pants just to make a point. Now, Rue is watching all this, and you can see the fear in her eyes. She's now witnessing the other side of the man that she initially thought was a cool businessman with a strip club and had some dope-ass parties. But now she sees his other side, the side of him being fragile and insecure and being a straight-up psychopath, and he views everyone as a liability. And with her secretly working for the DEA, Rue has to only imagine what he would do to her if he ever found out. Now, switching gears back to the influencer side of the world, we have Cassie and her new mentor fling thing going on with Brandon. It's clear that they've been sleeping together, and Brandon is doing exactly what guys like him do, and that's isolating this up-and-coming star. He's whispering in Cassie's ear that Maddie isn't a real manager and that she needs to move into the influencer house to really grow her empire, as he tells her to fire Maddie because it's the right business decision. Now, speaking of Maddie, we cut to her at her 9-to-5 job as an assistant as she's tasked with cleaning up dog poop. Now, to make matters worse, her boss brings up that she recently read an article on Caitlin, who we remember was the girl that Maddie first represented, and how she's now making a fortune, which is what Maddie told her boss all those months ago. If she would have listened to her, they would have been making a fortune off of her. Now, we later find Cassie finding out what Maddie does for a living, and she sets up a meeting for them to talk about moving forward with her being her manager. Now, on the other side of town, we find Nate talking to Cassie about Brandon and encouraging her to making sexy videos with him because it'll make a lot of money. Now, as Nate pitches this idea to his wife of her and Brandon in a hot tub, making it look like they're a couple. Now, Cassie brings up, wouldn't her husband be jealous? Well, he tells her no, because he's a businessman and he sees this as an opportunity for them to take advantage of Brandon, and even Nate encourages her to move in with Brandon because she is his last hope. It is crazy to see Nate literally encouraging his new wife to move in with another whole-ass man and sell her body and image because, as he says, she is his last hope to pay off his debts. Now, we can see that this is obviously a con that was orchestrated by Nate and Cassie are working together, or at least Cassie sees it as them working together. But in reality, Nate isn't a supportive husband. He's clearly a failing man using his star-hungry wife as a human ATM machine. Now again, we talked about it last week. Is this the Nate that everyone was missing? Because this to me is definitely a move that old Nate will pull back in season 1 and 2, again, pimping out his own wife. Now, I don't want to completely dismiss Cassie's part in this whole situation because I definitely think that she is fully aware of at least some of what's going on in regards to her benefiting from being pimped out by not only her husband, but also Maddie. Now, don't get me wrong. Cassie's an idiot, but I don't think she's fully not aware of what's going on. I think she actually likes the attention going on, and whether it's Cassie, Maddie, or Nate, everyone thinks they're winning, but as we know, this is not going to end well for any of them. Now, to me, this first half of the episode really highlighted the theme of exploitation. Alamo exploits his crew's fear, Brandon exploits Cassie's ambition, and Nate exploits Cassie's entire existence. Again, nobody is winning here, even if they think that they are. Now, before moving on, let's take a moment to hear from the sponsor of this week's video, and that being Factor. So about 2 weeks ago, we were hit with a pretty massive storm out here in the Midwest, and as you all know, whenever there's a big storm coming in, that means you got to go to the grocery store, stock up, and try to get as many things as you can. But as you all know, more times than not, we end up going at the last minute, so when you arrive to the grocery store, nothing on your grocery list is available, the lines are outside the door, and it's just an extreme hassle. But luckily for me, I had a solution for my problem, and that's thanks to Factor. Factor just always comes in the clutch for me because it's an answer to my problem. It gives me a solution to having fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs and delivered straight to your door. Not only is Factor a convenience thing for me that I love, but it also allows me to hit my nutrition goals, especially with the summertime coming up. There is no planning, there's no awful grocery runs, or no cooking. Again, with spring coming up and summer right around the corner, Factor just fits my schedule and my routine perfectly. Factor has meals that are just built around your goals, whether that's weight loss, overall nutrition, more protein, or GLP-1 support. Now, for those that are looking to work out more for strength or even workout recovery, check out Factor's Muscle Pro collection. Every meal is crafted with functional ingredients, lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, and healthy fats. Factor bans 175 plus ingredients, no artificial colors or sweeteners, no high fructose corn syrup, no refined seed oils, just nutrient-dense food. And when it comes to the taste, this is what I love about Factor. It's fresh, it's never frozen, over 100 rotating weekly meals, including globally inspired flavors like Mediterranean and Asian, so there's always something new to look forward to. Also, what I love about Factor is when they add new things. For example, try their newly launched ready-to-go salads with vibrant ingredients like elote, corn, and miso edamame. Plus 70 plus add-ons to round out your nutrition, from green juices to peanut butter energy bites. Again, I just love the convenience about Factor. Like, ready in 2 minutes, Factor shops, preps, cooks, and delivers straight to your door, so you have more time for everything you love this spring. Again, there's just so many things I love about Factor. The convenience, not having to worry about going to the grocery store, having various different options. I use this and you should too. Now, here's the best part. You're going to want to head to factormeals.com/moviefiles50 off and use my code moviefiles50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with new subscriptions only while supplies last into September 27th of 2026, which you're going to want to use the website for more details. Again, head over to factormeals.com/moviefiles50 off and use my code moviefiles50 off to get 50% off and free daily greens per box with a new subscription only while supplies last until September 27th of 2026. Again, I love Factor and I just know you all will love it too. So again, you can find all that information in the description of this very video. Thank you to Factor. If you are looking for a convenient food delivery service with great options, definitely check them out. Now, all the information can be found on Factor in the description below and linked in the pinned comments. So if you all want to help out the channel, definitely check out Factor. But with that being said, let's get back to the breakdown. Now, back with Rue, Alamo asks to see her alone for the first time since the robbery, but first she's got to hear from Bishop. He shares with her about his thoughts about people being cursed, and he feels that about Rue. And ever since she's been around, things haven't been going good.
I'm saying you got a 666 inscribed on the back of your skull, but something about you gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Now, as Bishop tells Rue to meet Alamo at his bar, we see that he's got the Silver Slipper security guard tied up in the shower and he's about to torture him, most likely thinking that he has something to do with the robbery, as we later see that this security guard ends up being chopped up in pieces and fed to the pigs. Now, downstairs, Alamo tells Rue that Lori wants to meet and he thinks that she wants him to surrender and wave the white flag, but Alamo ain't about to roll over his belly like a pig and play monkey to her tune. Now, later that night, we see Rue meets up with the DEA agents who's breathing down her neck to record the meeting with Lori. She tries to call Lori and bait her, but Lori shuts it down immediately after Rue brought up her recently murdered bird. Now, Rue's desperate, so she pivots over to Wayne. Finally, Rue gets a win as Wayne let it slip out that they've already found a new drug mule to replace Rue, and this being just enough for the DEA and what they needed for now. Now, after Cassie learned that Maddie works as an assistant and before setting up the meeting with her, we see Cassie signing a new manager, most likely someone that's tied to Brandon, as she is ready to dump Maddie. Now, at this meeting at Maddie's apartment, which Maddie lied about where she lived to Cassie, as they both start calling each other out for lying to one another. Now, Cassie tries to tiptoe around the situation as she brings up moving into the influencer house and this being a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but we can see that Maddie can see where this is going a mile away. She tells Cassie to have some balls and just get straight to the point. As Cassie is about to fire her, we see Maddie pulls a great bait and switch. We watch as she pretends to be on the phone about an audition for the LA Knights with the star Dylan, as Cassie immediately forgets what she just told her 5 seconds ago about firing Maddie, and instead she signs a contract created by Maddie without even reading it, as Maddie takes a picture of Cassie next to this contract, and Cassie promises to never let her down again. But here's the thing, Maddie hasn't actually secured their audition for Cassie. We watch as Maddie strong arms Lexi into making this happen after Maddie asks Lexi if she wants to make an enemy out of her. And Lexi knows better, and she ultimately makes the call. Now, Cassie shows up to the audition and we watch as she leans into the Lexi Howard sister card when signing in under Howard as her last name and not her newly married last name, as Cassie ends up delivering a monologue from Antony and Cleopatra. And honestly, we see Cassie's pretty good at this, which honestly shouldn't come as a surprise because we know Cassie has lived her whole entire life performing, so it makes total sense that she would be a natural. Now we see Patty and her producer seize her tape and they're hooked on her and they want her to join the LA Knights.
Mm-hmm. If she can do Shakespeare, she can do LA Knights. Yes.
Now back with Rue, she's with Jules, who she hasn't seen since the wedding. Now Jules asks Rue if she's had any other relationships since high school, which we see Rue brings in Angel and that being her last relationship. Now we watch as Rue kind of adds in a particular story about how the relationship went between her and Angel. Most of it was true, but some of it was kind of made up to kind of what I assume was to make Jules a little bit jealous, as Jules can sense that maybe Rue is actually lying about some of it. Now we watch as Jules gets straight to the point and she asks Rue, what does she want out of her? What does she want out of this situation or whatever the situation they have going on? As Jules wants Rue to simply take it and to make Jules hers, which ironically we cut to a scene where Jules is having sex, but not with Rue, but she's having sex with Ellis. Now after they have sex, we see Ellis finds a pair of Rue's underwears and he questions Jules about who she's bringing to his apartment. He lectures her about his family and the risk of STDs, throwing the underwear in her face like trash, as we can see Jules slightly tearing up. This was a moment where I felt that Jules felt the fear of being unseen. I feel like Jules is tired of being someone's secret or being someone's afterthought. She wants to be someone's everything right now, and she's just being treated like a thing to be disregarded. To me, this second half of the episode focused on the theme of manipulation and how everyone is using someone. Whether that's Maddie using Cassie, or the DEA using Rue, or Ellis objectifying Jules, and we'll get a little bit more of that with Nate. Now, Nate wakes up to the notification that Cassie has wired over another $30,000 to him, and we see Nate thinks that he's untouchable right now. He's literally dancing in celebration, feeling like he's in high school again, but he's still late on his payment to Nas. Now in the background, we see one of the goons watching Nate dancing as he ultimately breaks into the house while Nate was in his mid-groove. We watch Nate runs upstairs, lock himself in the bathroom, thinking that this wooden door can stop what's about to happen to him. Now I hope you guys weren't eating during this scene, because not only does Nate get his recently reattached toe ripped off, but then the goon takes his ring finger off as well. Now, while it was gross to watch, there was some symbolism going on in this scene. To me, Nate's power is literally being stripped away limb by limb. He can't run from the situation, and he definitely can't just put a ring on this messy life anymore. To me, he's literally falling apart, and out of all the characters right now, he's taken the most physical damage so far. And in my eyes, karma has definitely caught up to Nate. And y'all remember Tyler from season 1? Yeah, I have a feeling that he's somewhere in the world of Euphoria just smiling right now. Now, before moving on, I do want to highlight that I do feel like when it comes to all the characters, Jules and Nate feel like they're in a different show, but the thing that keeps them connected to me is the themes they have going on, right? Manipulation, control, wanting to be seen. So again, they feel like they're in a different show, but I think thematically, their themes are still tying in to what's going on overall with the show. Meanwhile, over at the club, the walls are closing in on Rue. Magic finds the drugs that Rue forgot that she planted in her locker in last week's episode. Magic takes them straight to Alamo and spills the tea on what really happened, at least from her perspective, during the robbery. Now, Alamo is a predator and he smells blood in the water. He's starting to realize that Rue might have been the one that set up the robbery with Elordi. Now cut to Rue and Maddie at a diner talking about Cassie and how Maddie has taken on the belief in equanimity, which is the mental calmness, composure, and evenness on temper, especially in difficult situations. Now they get to talking about the Bible and Jesus, but outside, Rue notices Bishop, and instead of Jesus walking into the diner, in comes Alamo the devil. Man, the tension in this scene was great. This is probably one of my favorite scenes. Probably my favorite scene now when I think about it of the episode, as Maddie can sense the energy shifted in the room. As Alamo talks about his upbringing and how he knows his employees, you can see he's marking his territory. He tells Rue that her ride is outside, but he stays behind to talk to Maddie as the Rue domino effect begins. They talk about his quality of life, and she shares a little bit of her life and her money issues and how she's splitting time between her day job versus her other job, which is managing OnlyFans. She starts breaking down the economics of OnlyFans, mentioning how the platform made nearly just as much as Hollywood did the year before. Maddie admits that she might not necessarily be a good person and only is worried about making the bag and ain't worrying about getting her hands dirty in the process. Now, when she mentions that Cassie could be a $1 million month earner, we see Alamo's ears perking up. He's looking for a partner with a vision, and Maddie is auditioning for that very role. He takes her to the club to see his roster, and Maddie picks out Magic and Kitty. Maddie is officially in business with the devil, and as I said in the past, I'm such a big fan of the Maddie character, and I truly hope that she is smart enough to survive Alamo. Now we take a detour back to the Howard sisters, where Lexi tells Cassie that she got the role in LA Nights. In Cassie's twisted head, this is her foot in the door of Hollywood. She is one step closer to taking over, or at least that's how she sees it in her head. Now as we come to a close of this episode, back with Rue, things have gone from bad to very bad for her. Bishop takes Rue's phone and they drive out to Alamo's ranch. They hand her a shovel, they make her dig a hole deep enough to reach her throat. Now, as she's done, G, Kid, and Bishop bury Rue up to her neck in the hole that she dug herself. This being a literal metaphor of Rue having spent the last 3 seasons digging a hole of her own lies, her addiction, and her betrayals. Now, she's literally stuck in it. It's now morning, and Alamo is out with his horse talking about love and trust, the 2 things Rue has completely destroyed in his eyes. We cut back to Rue in the hole, Rue's head sticking out, which is very similar to the movie that she was watching that was in the background playing in episode 1 at Lori's house. But we find Rue finds herself in the most vulnerable and terrified position of her life. Now Alamo on his horse riding towards Rue with club in hand, looking like he's about to knock her head clean off like he similarly did at the end of episode 1 with the gun in the apple. But this time we don't see the outcome as we cut to black. Leaving us to wondering, is this the end of Rue? Which obviously we know she's not going to die. She's going to come back. But we're left to wonder what could happen. Speaking of what could happen, has Maddie finally found her niche, or has she sold her soul to the devil? And speaking of the devil, how much more of Nate is Naz going to chop off of him? Now, overall, besides that god-awful opening sequence, I found the rest of this episode to be pretty interesting overall and pretty solid. Again, it's the themes that's really keeping me attached to some of the ridiculous stuff that goes on with the show. Again, the themes that I took away from this episode is addiction, control, manipulation, violence, all that being really highlighted throughout this episode in a pretty good way. Like I said earlier, to me, it feels like Nate and Jules are in another show, but their themes of control and isolation and wanting to be seen fits into everything else that's going on in the show as well. Rue still has the most compelling plot to me so far, and Cassie's story by far is the most shocking, obviously. And as I said up top, I'm a huge Maddie fan, and again, I really hope that she can see through Alamo's BS and nothing happens to her as she goes down Alamo's hellscape. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that will conclude this week's breakdown of Euphoria Season 3, Episode 5. Now, the most important question of them all is, what did you all think about this episode? From the beginning, that opening sequence, what plot is standing out to you the most? What did you like? What did you love? What did you hate about this episode? And of course, share your thoughts and theories and predictions of what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead. Now, if you all don't know, I've been doing trailer breakdowns these last couple weeks for the new trailers of Euphoria. So we talk about the trailer, we break it down. We also talk about some of my theories, and I hope to share some of you all's theories. So I normally put that video out on Tuesdays, so keep an eye out for a trailer breakdown coming up pretty soon. Alrighty, y'all, if you have made it to the end of the video, I appreciate you all. Thank you for the support. You all are the real MVPs. Do me a favor, put in the comments right now, #Maddie no. Now, for all my YouTube watchers out there, I appreciate you all because I know there are some amazing content creators that's also covering this show. So the fact that you all are watching my breakdown means the world to me. So do me a favor, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button if you enjoyed this breakdown. And when you hit the like button, there's a hype button that pops up on YouTube, whether that's on your phone or sometimes I think it could pop up on your TV and your computer. Hit the hype button. It shares this video to new viewers. And speaking of new viewers, hit the share button, man. If you all know someone that loves this show or hates this show and just wants to talk about it, share this video to anyone and everyone you all know. And again, share your thoughts in the comments and consider sticking around by subscribing to the channel today. For all my podcast listeners out there, whether that's Apple or Spotify or wherever you all get your podcasts from, leave your thoughts of the episode in the comments below. Consider following the podcast, and I would love it if you all can give me a 5-star review. Alrighty, thanks again to Factor who sponsored this video, which again, you can find that information in the comments and also in the description. Thank you all for watching or listening. Keep an eye out for my trailer breakdown coming up soon. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you. Don't forget, you all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll see you on the next breakdown.